The Masterclass series is graciously funded by the National Endowment for the Arts. Art Works. In an age where college funding is limited, education resources are questionable, and arts programs are being cut, the Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts, better known as CAAPA, has stepped up to the plate. Inspired by CAAPA as part of its commitment in supporting classical music education and performance artists throughout the United States and abroad, we offer the Masterclass series. CAAPA marries serious music students with acclaimed music masters of color, targeting historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, high school performing arts schools, and music conservatories, including the universities of Alabama State, Clark Atlanta, Fisk, Hampton, Howard, Lane College, Morgan State, North Carolina Central, Spelman College, Virginia State, and Xavier University of Louisiana. Since its launching in 2014, the Masterclass series helps students work on technique, improve stage presence, fine-tune performances, and build self-confidence. While emphasis is placed on classical music students to participate in the Masterclass series, audiences and faculty members are also encouraged to attend the free-to-the-public sessions, an exciting and fresh way to help CAAPA bring color to the classics. The Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts, in partnership with Fisk University, presents the Masterclass series, the premier Black classical music Masterclass series. Heather's Hill career encompasses work in opera, concert, Broadway, TV, and film. Recent performances include the role of June Johnson in the world premiere of This Little Light with Santa Fe Opera, Angelica in Orlando, Hero of Love by Handel with Opera Praticos in New York City, and the role of Ravine Marotta in the musical premiere of Otherworld at the Delaware Playhouse. She finished a 4-year run performing as the understudy Carlotta and the innkeeper's wife in the Broadway company of The Phantom of the Opera, followed by understudying the roles of Lily and Serena in the Tony Award-winning Broadway revival of the Gershwins' Porgy and Bess. Heather has performed with numerous U.S. opera companies, including Little Opera Company Theater New York, Dallas Opera, Opera Colorado, the Caramore Festival, and New York City Opera. She is also a recitalist and voiceover artist. She holds a master's degree from the Manhattan School of Music, a BS in biology from Clark Atlanta University, and studied acting at the T. Schreiber Studio in New York. Facilitating today's masterclass is soprano Heather Hill. Before we meet the music master, I just would like to say hello to everyone and welcome to CAAPA's virtual masterclass series. My name is Renée Simpson. I am the program director of the series and your host. I would like to thank the Fisk University and its music department for agreeing to partner with us today in bringing color to the classics. To the Fisk music students and faculty who are observing via Zoom, we will have a short question and answer session with Ms. Hill after she finishes working with Ms. Frazier. Please feel free to use the chat button for any questions you may have. And those who are watching on Facebook Live, please post your questions in the comments. Now, without further ado, I bring to you our music master soprano, Heather Hill, followed by Fisk Junior soprano, Ms. Elise Golden.
Good morning. Wonderful to see you and looking forward to hearing you. It's great.
Thank you.
Before do you mind introducing your song and giving a very brief scenario of what's happening at this time in the show?
Sure. So this is I'm Here from The Color Purple on Broadway, and I first heard this song when Cynthia Erivo, I think I said her name correctly.
Erivo.
I heard this song from her first, and she's talking about her family and like the freedom that she's found towards the end of the show. And this is really just self-liberation for her. So that's what I think about when I sing this piece.
Awesome. Be happy to listen. Let's go.
I don't need you to love me. I don't need you to love. I've got my sister. I can feel her now. She may not be here, but she's still mine. I know she still loves me. Got my children, I can't hold them now. They may not be here, but they still mine. I know. They know that I still love them. At my house, it still keep the cold out. Got my chair when my body can't hold out. Got my hands doing good like they supposed to. Showing my heart to the folks that I close to. Got my eyes, though they don't see as far now. They see more about how things really are Take a deep breath. Gonna hold my head up. Gonna put my shoulders back and look you straight in the eye. Gonna work with somebody when they walk by. I'm gonna sing. I believe I have beautiful and all alive. I'll stand as tall as the tallest tree. I'm thankful for every day that I'm given, both the easy and hard ones I'm living. But most of all, I'm thankful for loving who I am. I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. And I am here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You know, you first of all, beautiful voice, and you picked a tough song, a really tough song, because this is a complicated piece. It really makes you use all of these different parts of your voice and flow back and forth between them. And you know, it can be a little tricky and a little risky sometimes with how people want to sing it. They tend to push, or they lose support. And I want to commend you on navigating so many of the transitions through this song. I had the pleasure of seeing this several times and seeing a few different singers. You know, it's been sung by some big names, right? You have LaShawn, who nailed it on Broadway the first time. You have Fantasia, who is inimitable. You have Cynthia Erivo lastly, and she has a really wide range of usage with her voice. And so you have three really distinctive different kinds of singers who are singing this song and made it really well known, which is actually a good thing because you're your own person. And so there are a few things I want to just kind of mention. First of all, this song happens, you know, this is at the end of the show. This song happens after she's been on stage for 2 hours being kind of pushed around and often abused and told she's ugly. And she has this huge realization, right? And you are articulating that. It's huge. It's a huge moment. And you started it so simply and nicely, like I'm like a thought. So that was awesome. And you want to do that. I think important in this song is to find moments of vocal rest in between the big moments as you carry the thought forward, if that makes a lot of sense. So a few things I just want to mention that I noticed is when you're going into your chest voice, it is very important that you keep the angle of your head forward. You want to keep the neck column open, because when you are transitioning from more of a head support sound, we use that term, head voice into chest voice or mix. You want to go through the mix and you want to keep the flow of the sound, because otherwise when you start tilting your head back a little bit, you start cutting off the air a little bit here, it diminishes the resonance space back here, and you need that in your mix and in your chest. It's not just a big transition. So when you are, I'm not sure where I want to start on that, but when you go into that, I want you to just be conscious of not going off like this, which a lot of times you see people will have these veins popping out here because of that. You didn't. That was lovely, but it's a risk when you tilt your head back, when you get right into it. You want to just keep the column open so that it flows forward. And also when you're going into your mix, that's where you have it's you know, you have your lower register into your mid register where you're kind of mixing the sound, this mix, into your head voice where the resonance builds up and goes a little higher. But when you're belting it, you want to keep it open, because the resonance is different from opera where you'd be like, oh, like you're putting it more forward in placement into the mask. and a lot of people say it's a little more of a nasal sound. It's not really nasal, but it's forward in the resonant space there. And that will keep pressure off your vocal cords. Does that make sense, what I've said so far? Yeah, okay. We're gonna go past the beginning part, which is lovely and was very gentle.
Got my hands doing good like they supposed to. Showing my heart to the folks that I close to.
Perfect. So what I want, first of all, is, you know, with belting, you have to engage like you're singing opera. Like your lower abdominals should always be fully engaged, so you're always supporting the tone. As you go up, right up that column, kind of bringing the tone forward into the mask when you go into the mix and then into the head. So that was great. You were standing erect, beautiful. Make sure that's engaged, and make sure that you are not closing down any of the space. So let's see. Where's that 35? Let's do that one more time. And I want you to really be present with making sure your lower abdominals are engaged, making sure your column is full, and making sure you're not closing down any of that space as you bring the voice up and forward into the mask.
Okay. Got my hands doing good like they supposed to. Showing my heart to the folks that I'm close to.
How did that feel?
A little better.
A little better? Because what did you hear? Or what did you feel?
Especially on before I get to the word close, the words folks that it felt better there.
It felt open. Well, it sounded more consistent actually in tone with that for me. It sounded fuller and it sounded better supported. You don't want to have anything squeezing and down that sound, especially as you're putting more pressure on the cords to go into a belt. And it just sounded freer and more, you know, you can move. You're going to have to move in these shows if you're doing musical theater a lot, and you don't want it. You want to make sure your support is tight and your column is free and open. That was beautiful. I liked that sound better when you sang it that way. It sounded like there was no pressure that was closing anything down. What I noticed is that when you're coming down and you're going back into singing softly, you drop your support. And that causes your vibrato to widen, and not as an affect, but in a, you know, you need a little more support there, because when you get really into it, you were right on pitch, but that's where pitches can sink. And when you're doing a long run of something, when you start dropping out on support, when you're flipping into different resonances or changing the voice to do a different effect, that's where you might get into a little bit of trouble. And let's find a spot where you go back down into, let's see, before the end of Unbeautiful.
Or do you mean like a part where I'm maybe belting or in mix and then I go to sing softly?
Yes.
67 maybe, and then because at 71 I sing softly. Thankful for every day that I'm given, both the easy and hard ones I'm living. But most of all, I'm thankful for loving who I really am.
And then you're back into a real comfortable space there anyway, because it's all lighter and it's a little less pressure there. I wish I could find exactly where that spot was. Maybe it was when they walk by, but that was beautiful. I want to remind you just on the even, that's a big moment. Keep that column open, keep the head erect, not going up, which you didn't really do that time. But even on those big belty moments, I want to make sure that you have space. Let's start with, I'm gonna take a deep breath, and I may stop you right in the middle of it because I just want to make sure what I want to make sure is that your transitions, whether you're going from head voice into chest resonance or through the mix into that, I want to make sure, just like with opera, it's actually really, or classical music, you want a consistent sound and you don't want to hear the transitions. With musical theater, the style is a little bit different. Sometimes you want to hear those transitions, but you have to make sure that when you do that, you are fully supported and not putting extra pressure on the chords, because that can cause you major problems down the road. And this is a tricky song for that. So anyway, let's go back and start with, I'm gonna take a deep breath.
49, okay. I'm gonna
Hold on. Even right there, I want you to think about your support, chest open and engaged, because there's no reason to let it relax into the back of your throat a little bit. You want to totally fully support it there. Do that again.
I'm gonna take a deep breath. Gonna hold my head up. Gonna put my shoulder back and look you straight in the eye. Wanna flirt with somebody when they walk back. I'm gonna say no.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And how did that feel?
It felt really, really nice on the shoulders back, because that's more of my mix. So it's just a little bit more difficult to do. But keeping my head like forward made it a lot easier.
Okay, and that's great, because that's what you want. You don't want it to feel hard ever if you don't have to. I mean, you have to engage and you have to do the work, but you don't want to feel like you're squeezing or tightening or anything like that. How did it feel for the I'm gonna sing out? Because that's way up there, and that's where you really ping that one forward so that you're not putting chords or stress on the back.
Sing out, it felt a little stressed. I know Miss Brown told you, like, I'm just getting over like some sinuses issues. So, but usually when I sing it, there's just a little bit more of a mix than a belt, just because of where it is in my voice. So
Good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing when you can bring in a little bit more of that mix in there. But also, just, I don't want to have you do it over and over again if you're still recovering anyway. But I do want you to just, when you get to places like sing, it's a little bit more of a mix. So you want to make sure you have the space in that, but you also really want to bring it forward for the belt.
Okay.
So that sounded great. I just want you to be hyper aware of that, because that is about vocal health, and everything is always about vocal health. As you sing and deliver the goods. So one other thing I wanted to mention, which is a little bit different from what I was just talking about. In the beginning of the song, she repeats several of the phrases at the very, very beginning, right? They are repeated for a reason, right? I don't need you to love me. I don't need you to love me. They shouldn't be sung the same emotionally. I mean, it may be a slight adjustment, but there's a reason she repeats it. And so I would love for you to sing the beginning, and I'll probably let you go a little bit more into it, just so I can, because there's a couple phrases that repeat, and I want to hear why she changes it, what you think about that, and how you incorporate that in your delivery.
Okay.
5 minutes, Miss. 5 minutes.
Thank you.
I don't need you to love me. I don't need you to love. I've got my sister. I can feel her now. They may not be here, but she's still
Beautiful, beautiful. So, why does she repeat that first phrase twice? What's happening?
I think that in this moment of like independence and declaration, the first time she says it, I think between the first and the second time, she really hears herself. Like she really doesn't need anyone to love her. She has her family and her children. So that's what I interpret it as. I think it's a bit stronger the second time she says it.
So it's a realization of something. Like, you know how sometimes you blurt something out and you're like, "Hmm, yeah, I don't. Whatever. I have the strength. Wait, I don't need you, specific in this case, not just everybody, but I don't need you to like me, right? So I want to make sure that when you sing a phrase like that that's repeated, it's great. It starts off beautifully. The beginning is, I don't need you to love me. I want to hear the shift, or I want to see it in your countenance as you go into that. And then she comes into the next repeated phrase. And why does she repeat? What's happening when she's repeating? I've got mine. What's happening right there?
She's realizing what she has, maybe, and what she has means a lot to her, and it's a lot in value when you really think about it. Just going off of the first one, she already has what she needs, so she really doesn't need anything else.
So it's a growth moment. Actually, it's like a clarity. Like, I've got all these things. I love that. It's so beautiful, and that's you want to lean into those moments and always know that if something is repeated, there's a reason, because this is a huge shift that swells to the end, which takes the audience on a complete journey of her coming completely into her own at that moment. And it's a beautiful thing. I thought you did an absolutely beautiful job with this. This is really a tough song. You want to go through it slowly and make sure with all of the transitions that you are remembering to stay fully engaged, remembering not to close down and cause extra stress in any parts, especially when you're going through the mix into the belt. And as a classical singer, sometimes you gotta figure out the thing about this is you're in both camps, right? That's my world. Is I love my classical world, but I've always had a passion for musical theater. So I have to balance that. And I just thought you did a beautiful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Beautiful job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Fisk Senior Soprano, Ms. Zoe Frazier.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to hearing you. So can you tell me a little bit about your song and what's happening at this point?
Okay, so my song is the final piece from The Wiz. It's called Home, and it's basically about Dorothy leaving and going back home. And she's basically talking to the scarecrow, the Tin Man, the lion, and basically like saying, like, I want to go home, but I'm taking all the things that I've learned on this long, meticulous journey, like with me, like about having courage, about like being able to accept myself and accept myself for who I am, and just going home with the confidence to, just grow and be who she is.
Wonderful. Let's go for it.
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there. The things I've been away, that makes the tall trees bend into leaning. Suddenly the raindrops that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea. Makes it empty. There's a chance for me to go back now that I have some direction. Sure would be nice to be back home where there's love and affection. Just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time, my friend. Let me start again. My world's gone and changed its fate, but I still know where I'm going. I've had my mind spun around in space, and yet I've watched it all growing. And if you're listening, God, please don't make it hard to know if we should believe the things we see. Tell them, should we run away? Should we try and stay? Or would it be better just to let things be? Let me and just run away. Might be a fantasy. But it's taught me to love. So it's so real to me. And I've learned that we must look inside our heart to find a world full of love, like yours, like mine, like home.
Thank you. Beautiful job. Thank you very much. We had a little more in and out on the volume, especially on the higher tones, but I think I've got a lot to work with, and we'll go through back through a few different moments. Beautiful job. Thank you. This is this is the Wiz, and again, this is a role that's been made iconic by people like Diana Ross and Stephanie Mills, and most recently, I think Shawnice Williams did it, the Wiz live, and I don't know if you've had a chance to check those out, and I love that. Beautiful job. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. I think when you started this, let's see where we are. The very beginning, I'm going to mention a few things that are a few similar concepts about when you're going into your mix and your head voice. You did pretty good with this, but there were moments, I think, where was it? Well, actually, we'll just go back to the beginning first, and I'll tell you the first point, which was, you started it lightly, because she's having a conversation now. I don't know who she's talking to. Who do you think she's talking to at this time when she begins the piece? Oops, can you speak a little louder?
She's talking to the lion and the scarecrow before she begins this piece.
Okay, so she's starting and she's actually directing it to them, right? And then at some point, does it shift, or is she continuing to talk to them the whole time? How do you see this?
In the script, like before, she's talking to the lion, the scarecrow, and this tin man, but right before this like song, she's talking to the scarecrow specifically and the lion, and they're basically saying like, you can come back anytime, like
Right.
you can go if you take the shoes with you, like you'll be able to come back. And she was
Right.
basically saying, I want to come back and I will come back and I promise I will, but when I think I want to, like at this point, like I miss my family and I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to face them.
Right. So that's the moment before, which sets you up for this great song, which is again a big ender, right? This is a big finale for her. What I was thinking a little bit more of is, yes, there are people with her and she's talking to them, but at some point, she's also talking to herself a little bit, right? She's not just telling them, when I think of home, I think of a place, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of inward thought happening right here, right? And so what I wanted to see that a little bit more. I wanted to see a little bit more of her feeling what she's saying. She's not just telling them something, she's explaining and expressing what's really happening here. And I felt like, right, you started, when I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home. I wish I was back there. With the things I've been knowing, when you got to things I've been knowing, you actually shifted more into a mix right then and kind of leaned it forward, and it stayed that way. And I wonder if you might have do it again. And when we make shifts, there's a reason. There's a reason why she would shift how she's singing it. So yes, she's telling them what she's thinking about, but I would love you to stay a little bit more in that softer, more gentle resonance, fully supported, before you go into the mix, maybe a little bit more from the beginning. Just sing a little longer into that until it makes sense to do a change of emphasis. And it needs to make sense from an acting perspective. Otherwise, you're just switching into mix and you're just like, hey, I can switch into that, and then it switches later into a mixy dough, right? So can you start from the beginning? And let's say, yes, she says the first line to them, and then she maybe talks to herself for a little bit. And let's see how that feels. Does that make sense?
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there. Things I've been knowing that makes the tall trees bend into leaning. Suddenly the raindrops that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea.
Okay, beautiful job. So I think that you can give a little bit more in that space, because once you shifted, you never kind of shifted back. And I want there to be a little bit more transition with your thought process that we feel and hear. I do want to emphasize that just because you're singing more softly and you're talking about something, that doesn't mean there's not a stronger emotional push behind it. So when I think of home, I think of a place where there's love of, I wish I was home, I wish I was back there, blah, 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 whatever's going on next. I want to feel a rise of emotion as you sing it, so it doesn't feel like you're just resting in a soft space, because otherwise just an abrupt switch as you go forward. So as you sing, you're feeling it more and more, and I should feel that emphasis as you're bringing it forward. So let's start again from, and just start like a measure before. You don't need too much of an intro on that. And then when I think of home, I think of a place. When you sing the next line, I wish I was home, I wish I was back there, I want to see that emotionally and how you're doing that. And when you get to the trees, I want you to see the trees. All of this is done with full support. All of this is done with great breath, full breath in there. But I want to feel that, and I want to see a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to suddenly sing hard because you're feeling emotional, or sing more into the mix necessarily. It should be kind of a natural transition based on your emotional journey. So can we start from the beginning again?
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. When that makes the tall trees bend into leaning, suddenly the raindrops that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea. Makes it all clean.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That for me was me following you a little bit more on a journey, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't build it, like when that makes the tall grass bend into leaning, telling me about it. Like, that's what I see. I see that right over here. See the tall grass that bends into leaning. So I love what you just did. I just want to encourage you to lean more into the emotion of it that we can feel and see. And it brings you forward emotionally in the song, which means when you do go into your mix and you're expressing it that way, it makes more sense. Also, at the very beginning, you told me that you're talking to the scarecrow, right? So you can talk to them. Let's talk to them on that first line, and then let it go a little bit more introspective, and then tell me about the story. So I'm following the journey, you know what I mean? And that's how we'll roll forward. Let's just do the first 3 lines, and then we'll skip to another section. One more time.
When I think of home, a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there. The things I've been knowing. When that makes the tall trees bend into leaning, suddenly the raindrops that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea. Makes it all clean.
Now this is a transition. This is a transition. Give me a
chance for me to go back now that I have some direction. Sure be nice to be back home where there's love and affection. I'm sorry.
It's all right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And good, just rolling into that. And you know what? When you leaned into the mix there and started bringing it a little bit more forward, it made sense. It made sense. It wasn't just like I'm shifting a little bit how I'm singing for the sake of it. It's great because you're taking us on that last journey after a huge adventure. And when she's talking about, now that I have some direction, that's exciting, because before she was like, what am I doing? Why am I here? I'm lost. And she's learned all these things. So you can infuse what you're saying with that. That was beautiful. So great job. Keep that, bring it through the storytelling, because that's what this is about. We're storytellers. So let's go forward to right before time be my friend. So that's, I guess, measure somewhere around measure 36. It's right, it's coming right after that. So, and then we're going to go into time be my friend. And I would love to hear you do that again. So.
Time be my friend.
Hold on, let's go back for a minute. Think of wherever you were just coming from. Because that's a plea. She's like, let me start again. She's really trying to get back home so she can live in a different way with whatever she's learned, right? So there's emotional underpinning on that I didn't hear on that one. So maybe if you need to start at 30, like measure before 36. Actually, forget it. Let's go back to it would sure be nice to be back home, because that'll help you roll into that.
Okay. It would sure be nice to be back home. Can I start over? I'm sorry.
Sure.
It would sure be nice to be back home, where there's love and affection. Just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time be my friend. Let me start again. Suddenly my world didn't change its face, but I still know where I'm going. My mind spun around in space, but yet I've watched it all grow away. If you're listening, God, please don't make it hard to know if we should believe the things we see. Tell them, should we run away? Should we try and stay? Or would it be better just to let things be? Living here.
First of all, beautiful job. I actually, when I first had you start at that section, the first time you sang through, I was going to ask you to, but you convinced me on how you did it with the time be my friend, because I think before, since we didn't have any differentiation between going into mix all the way through, I was like, you could make that a tender moment of time be my friend. But I like how you rolled into that from and just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time be my friend. Now that's a little bit more of a plea right there, but I liked how you did that. That was beautiful. So I will not ask you to do take it back. I think that's where you are led emotionally, and I believed you. Let me start again. Okay, and then suddenly my world's gone and changed its face. That's a shift, right? Emotionally, I feel that she is her next line, but still I know where I'm going. So she's not feeling lost. She's kind of getting excited here. So you can lean into that space. And I thought that was really nice. I think you can lean more into the emotion of all of it. Like, and I'll skip to the next line. And if you're listening, God, now that goes into the mixy chesty part where you have to really super support, right? Super support. That's my hyphenated word. Make sure your head is erect and not tilting back. It wasn't too bad, but it could be a little bit compressed. You can't do that when you're singing in that space, so that the tone is coming forward for that mix into belt. And if you're listening, God, I noticed you, and that's part of looking to the left and right, because you were originally talking to other people, but this is a plea to God, right? If you're listening, God, I'm talking to God now, right? So you're not necessarily talking to the scarecrow and whoever's around you. You're in a space right now, so you can say this. So I want you to let that emotion flow, but that's where it's really important for the engagement, the open column, and as you're bringing that mix forward into the forward placement resonance, that you don't put any stress on the chords. So can we start, suddenly, let's just start at 45. Suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, because that's a bit of a shift, right?
5 minutes, Miss Hill, 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Let's start at 45.
My world's gone and changed its face, but I still know where I'm going.
Let's do that again and bring the music in front of you. Bring the music more towards your front. I don't want you, yeah, or slightly to the side, but I don't want you turning your head to look at it, because then you're immediately out of it and you're changing what's happening in the throat. So I'd rather have that accessible. So let's do it again and start. Thanks.
Suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, but I still don't know where I'm going. My mind's spun around in space.
When you know where you're going, there's confidence in that, right?
Yes.
So you still know where you're going. So let's lean into that. I know where I'm going now. Before you might not have kind of known where you're going, but now you know. I want to feel that. One more time.
Suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, but I still know where I'm going. It's had my mind spun around in space, but I still watched it all grow away. If you say God, please don't make it hard.
Sorry. Okay, so with the more of emotion does not mean pressing harder on the chords or shifting it more into a mix. I'm going to go back to suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, but still I know where I'm going. That's an emotional change. So you can do a mix there, but I don't want you making it a vocal shift kind of push. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
A little bit. You can do the mix, but it doesn't have to be, I don't want any push. And go ahead into that, and remember, just fully support everything and keep the back of the space open.
My world's gone and changed its face, but I still know where I'm going. I've had my mind spun around in space, and yet I watched it all grow away. If you're listening, God, please don't make it hard to know if we should believe the things we see. Should we run away? Should we try and stay? Or would it be better just to let this be? In this brand new world, might be a fantasy. But it's taught me to love. So it's real.
I'm going to hold you there. First of all, beautiful job in that, what you just did. I thought that was lovely. And you supported, actually, when you were coming off of the note, you supported all the way through the end of the note. That was outstanding. Right where you are is a tricky spot, right? You're going into belt, and I don't want you to stress your chords. I know I'm almost out of time here. I want you to take away with that. I want you to really work on for the next section, because that's the high part, and that can be a stress on the chords. And this is a beautiful song for you. It's just gorgeous. I want you to.
You have a couple of minutes. You have a couple of minutes.
A few minutes. Okay. I want you to really bring forward the resonance space when you're going into that head. And when I say that, for people who don't belt, or people get on different sides of the aisle when it comes to belting and mixing, but it's really important that, as I said, it's fully supported, that you don't tilt, keeps the air flowing. But also, if I was doing a full musical theater, just focused, we'd be doing some exercises that are like, bringing it in, remembering where that nasal space is, that resonance is, and bringing it forward in there when you get up there. Not a nasal sound, just identifying that region a little bit more, so that everything, it shouldn't, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, you know what I mean? In that space. I don't want to hear in the next section that you sound like you're in vocal distress, because then I get taken out as a listener. Okay. We can start right before that, just for a few measures into that big section.
Tell us, should we run away? Should we try and stay? Or would it be better just to let me be? Living in this brand new world might be a fantasy. But it's taught me to love.
Okay.
So it's real to me.
Okay. We're going to hold on. So on the Taught Me to Love, this is more than I'm going to do have time in a master class that you can work with your fabulous professor on this, just because that's going to have to you're going to have to feel and find a bit of a better place for that Taught Me to Love through the very end. Otherwise, you're going to put a little too much stress on your chords. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's taught me to love. You might even on the 2, you could possibly bring it into a little bit more of a mixed resonance there, because otherwise it closes down the sound. And I think that's an area of the song that you just need to work and finesse with your teacher to make sure that you're not stressing out the chords. Up until that point, I think you just nailed it on that. You got the emotional part of the character in there. You need to just keep leaning into the storytelling of that. But when you get to the part where it's at the top of a belt range, you might need to bring more mix in. Listen to I would listen to Diana Ross, even the old school version, because she doesn't belt a lot. She mixes everything. And I would listen actually to Shanice Williams, who just did it recently. She's lovely. She's a young singer, and she navigates that really well, just to hear kind of what's going on. Because if you are hitting it and it's at your ceiling, then you need to put more mix into it. You need more head resonance in that, and you have to find the balance for your vocal health. It's not worth doing a show that's going to compromise your vocal health, because if you hurt yourself, they find somebody new. That's the way it works. So I will say, beautiful job, beautiful song for you. It just needs a little work on that end area. And I thought you did an absolutely lovely job. Thank you so much for sharing your talents with me. And I look forward to hearing you again. That was gorgeous. Both of you ladies, amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now comes our question and answer session, where I am going to talk with Ms. Hill. So, which is harder, opera or musical theater?
They are different. When it comes to difficulty of music, generally opera wins out, surely. You have a lot of other things happening.
Mm-hmm.
You have different skill sets that you're engaging with musical theater, and you also often have to, juggle or some more complex choreography. The emphasis on how they tell the story is different than it is with opera. The music is generally, there's a few contemporary new composers, Jason Robert Brown, or some other people who really write to support the singers classically and help tell the story. But a lot of the music in musical theater is just supporting the singers who are just driving the plot. In opera, it's often a blend, right? Mm-hmm. They require different things. Musically, you might encounter some really tricky stuff, but you have some, Sondheim was no walk in the park with musical theater either. Jason,
no, not at all.
So different skill sets.
Okay, so what made you decide to have an operatic / musical theater career?
You know, I decided I didn't want to pick. I lo- I loved musical theater,
Mhm.
musical theater, and when I really started training my voice properly, I knew classical was for me, classical singing, classical music.
Mhm.
Uh, and I kept being told that I needed to pick a lane.
Mm.
Needed to do was get my technique together, really get my technique together so that I knew how to sing healthily, and so that I was able to make choices about what's good for my voice, and maybe sometimes a hard choice by saying something's not great for my voice. Um, and so that's kind of what ended up happening. And therefore, I pursued both lanes, not always at the same time, but definitely both lanes. When I was in Phantom, which is classical musical theater,
Mhm.
and I had breaks off, I would be doing concert work, or I would take a vacation and do shows. Actually,
Mhm.
uh, I'm doing stuff now where I'm having to swing back and forth between, I'm doing guest entertaining on a ship. I fly out and do a show with a band, which is newer for me because I've always worked with conductors and
Mhm.
musical. Now I have to do that. And the repertoire for my musical theater band set versus the classical set that I do with the different people,
Mhm.
I have to choose my musical theater very carefully because I'm singing Queen of the Night in the other one, and you just have to know your voice.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's there's no park and bark anymore, so you also need, if you're in classical, you have to build up those acting chops. It really helps if you get some movement in there. There's more crossover in the physicality of that space
Mhm.
now than ever. I just didn't want to pick, and it's been, well, because if one door doesn't open, a lot of times another one will.
Okay, so let me ask you this: what started first? Was it the operatic technique that you brought into Broadway, or was it you working on musical theater that brought you to opera?
What started first, since we're talking about Fisk and we're talking about HBCU, I went to Clark Atlanta University, and I was part of the Philharmonic Society there,
Mhm.
and have a huge tradition as African Americans with spirituals and anthems and these beautiful, just the music and our history. That's what started my foundation for my singing.
Mhm.
Uh, we have a tradition of beautiful, healthy singing that has, for the last 150 years. And so you're at Fisk, this.
Mhm.
Um, and that was actually really the beginning of my work. And then um, I actually had a degree in biology from Clark Atlanta first. I was always in the singing room and choir and taking lessons or taking, trips with the singers. But my first degree was in biology.
Mhm.
After I graduated, I was like, well, I've done the pragmatic thing. I really want to sing and I want to act. And then I shifted. My first work was with Disney, which was an ensemble called Voices of Liberty,
Mhm.
um, for ear training, because it was 8-part a cappella, good singing. And then I came to New York and I realized if I really want to make it go, I need voice lessons. And I had the opportunity to do Porgy and Bess, um, and meet Jeffrey LeVar, who introduced my mentor, Virginia Davidson. And she was all about vocal health. It didn't matter what you wanted to sing, you had to be grounded in good vocal health.
Absolutely.
That was the foundation for everything. And then my voice really told me what I was right for.
Okay, let's talk about something you said: know your voice.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think a lot of students, even though the voice is still maturing,
Right.
they don't know their voice. How did you when was it that you realized what your voice could do and could not do?
Well, honestly, I'm finding out new things my voice can do that I couldn't do 10, 15 years ago, which
Mhm.
is that is the thing. As long as we are healthy and have a healthy singing technique, we use our support, we don't chords unduly,
Mhm.
um, then we will keep learning things our voice can do. It shouldn't hurt. You shouldn't be hurting yourself. You shouldn't have veins popping out.
Right.
You shouldn't be wrecked after a big day of singing. I mean, sometimes it's stamina, especially with opera, you might have that. But as far as like, you gave it all on the stage and you really can't sing for another 2 days because you just have to be quiet, that's not a good sign.
Right.
That's not how it works. Broadway, 8 shows a week. They don't care. Musicals are like that. Opera, you 2 performances a week, but they may be big, and you have to organize your life kind of around making sure you're healthy and you're vocalizing and doing what you need to do. So knowing my voice was a matter of actually developing my own vocal technique based on really healthy training, bel canto, our tradition of spirituals and anthems. Go listen to our and learning where things feel, how they feel, what's right and what's not right. And then also, I would say that when I was I'd learned a piece, I learned a song or an aria, coaching it properly with a coach from that genre is really important. Now, when it comes to stylistic changes, you would take, a Baroque piece to someone who deals with Baroque music. You wouldn't take them to someone who only does modern, contemporary, whatever. You do the same thing with musical theater, but you take your healthy technique with you wherever you go. Now, that doesn't mean you don't want to be sounding like you're an opera singer trying to sing musical theater. You want to have that awareness and learn where your voice is, just like on that last beautiful piece by Zoe, that there's a certain area that we need a little bit more work on here before I would necessarily roll it out to the world, because you want to put yourself in a position where you could hurt yourself. Right. It's a gorgeous piece for you, Zoe, by the way. I mean that. It's beautiful for you. I just want you to work on the high, the stressed areas. That's part of just knowing where you are and finding appropriate songs for that. You can go to people who are rep mavens. They can help you with that, whether it's opera, whether it's concert rep, and whether it's musical theater or whatever else you do. Find things that fit. There is music that fits.
Do you find with your particular career and how you navigated it that let's just say, for instance, you have your degree in biology. So say, for instance, there was another, God forbid, COVID epidemic where we were all shut in. Could you use your biology degree to find yourself work?
Not at this point, no. I have been, singing has been my bread and butter since about 3 years after I graduated from my undergraduate. It's been I've been fortunate to be able to sing for my living. But I can
now that you're in 2 worlds, when one shuts down, does the other, both of them did shut down in COVID, but.
When I said that, I meant basically different styles of work. So for example, I work in musical theater. I go back and forth. I have classical, work, whether it be an opera or whether it be concert work with different symphony orchestras, or kind of a mix with pops. I also, as you know, lean into things like voiceover, and I've done some TV film stuff, which, that's about, as far as my biology is concerned, it makes the world much more interesting. It helps me pronounce big words for scripts and to be able to do voiceover work for medical things where you have to talk about something with 20 letters in it. It enhances my life, and you want your life to be well-rounded. Very interesting. I would never work in it again. I wouldn't want to. I want to do other things, but everything you do becomes some part of your foundation that makes you who you are and can be used in some capacity. For me, it may not be what people expect. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hill. Thank you for answering all our questions. The question and answer session. Question and answer session. Sorry. Can we bring on Professor Brown? If she's still there, can we bring her on to say a few words? Hello, Professor Brown.
Hello, how are y'all doing?
We're good. We're good.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you again for letting us work with your students.
Yes.
Very talented students.
Oh, well, that's a blessing to me, and I thank God they they come to me and trust me with their voices. Heather, thank you so much. First of all, as all voice teachers say, thank you for saying what I've been saying to help them all along. But thank you also for solidifying the fact that just because students are singing musical theater, you don't do it without technique, and the classical background is necessary in order for that voice to be strong, healthy, and remain healthy, especially if a student wants to go further into that career. So I thank you for that assurance, and I hope other students are able to hear that as well. Both of my students unfortunately had to leave because at an HBCU classes continue. So I couldn't get them out of all their classes, obviously. And I told them if they had questions for you, they can simply email them to me and I can get them to you. But again, this was beautiful and I enjoyed myself. I'm at home because I'm ill. I don't want my students to get ill. But thank you so much. Everything was wonderful and they appreciated it very much.
Thank you so much. They were absolutely beautiful, and it was my honor and pleasure and wonderful to see you again. We have a
Yes.
history of all over the world. So I
Yes.
love it.
And I can't wait to hear you one more time, Heather. I've not heard you sing in a while, so I would love to hear you again.
Okay, we'll have to make that soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Miss Hill, do you have a few words?
Oh my goodness. I would say that just bouncing back on what you just said, Professor Brown, your technique is your responsibility. Your vocal health is your responsibility. Your ability to say no to things that are not good for you is your responsibility. You are in a fantastic place to really hone awareness of that, to develop, but also be, learning what's going to ultimately be your own personal technique. Everybody's personal technique eventually doesn't look like everybody else's. You can start with bel canto, you can start with whatever tradition you want, but your instrument is unique. And there's tiny little muscles in there that you are going to be depending on. So you have to do that. And I just love that. I think, Fisk has such an incredible musical tradition. We have such an incredible musical tradition. We can bring it all into to what we do. We just have to be smart about it. And there are possibilities. Think out of the box. Be a whole person. Cultivate. I've been lucky enough to sing for my supper, but I never actually really wanted to. So when I had the ability, I created other avenues for revenue. So just keep broad, lean in. You're in a great place. And I wish you all the luck. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram if you have questions. And it is such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hill. Thank you, Professor Brown. So this concludes our campus virtual masterclass with the Fisk University. I hope everyone enjoyed the performances as well as took away some valuable information from Ms. Hill. CAAPA would like to thank Fisk Music Department Chair, Dr. Catherine Burnett, Professor Gwendolyn Brown, Ms. Elise Golden, and Ms. Zoe Frazier, and finally, Ms. Heather Hill. This is CAAPA's last masterclass virtually. All of our future masterclasses will be in person on the campuses of our long continuing list of HBCUs. We recently had our first instrumental masterclass on the campus of Howard University with the Sphinx Virtuosi. Our next in-person masterclass will be at Xavier University of Louisiana with baritone Gordon Hawkins. Date to be determined. We hope to see you there. Please check out our Facebook page or website for masterclass dates and times. If you are interested in having the CAAPA Virtual Masterclass Series partner with your institution, please stay and watch our exit video, which will have our contact information. Thank you everyone for joining us, and God bless.